Subscribe to Husbandry before we begin, because this is one of those ideas that, once understood, makes modern gardening habits look, well, strangely backward. Nature has been mulching successfully for hundreds of millions of years, without trucks, tarps or imported materials, yet most gardeners work against this system every season. The trick is simple, ancient and devastatingly effective, and ignoring it costs time, soil health and resilience. How ecosystems mulch themselves without human intervention. In functioning ecosystems, mulch is not something added after the fact. It is produced continuously by the system itself. Leaves fall where roots already exist. Stems die back in place. Roots shed carbon underground, while new roots grow through the same soil. Nothing is cleared away to make things look tidy. This constant low-level input creates a living skin over the soil. It buffers temperature, feeds microbes, and protects structure. Importantly, it happens gradually. There is no seasonal reset where soil is exposed and forced to recover from scratch. Why do gardeners focus on surface mulch and miss the deeper process? Most gardening advice, treats mulch as a surface layer only. Straw, wood chips, bark or compost are spread to block weeds and hold moisture. While useful, this is only half of the natural system. In ecosystems, mulch is both above and below ground. Roots are the ignored half. In grasslands, forests and wetlands, more organic matter enters the soil from dying roots than from fallen leaves. Gardeners often remove plants entirely at harvest, pulling roots out and, breaking this cycle. How root turnover quietly builds soil faster than added materials. Plants constantly shed fine roots as they grow. It's something that just happens naturally. These roots decompose right there in place, feeding microbes exactly where nutrients are needed most. This, in turn, creates soil aggregates that really do resist erosion and compaction. Historically, farmers noticed this without modern terminology, of course. Fields kept under continuous cover improved even when little material was added from outside. Bare fallows, by contrast, lost fertility rapidly, no matter how much manure was applied later. Why, you might wonder, do ecosystems rely on living mulch rather than just dead coverage alone? Well, in nature, mulch is rarely inert. Even fallen leaves, you see, remain biologically active, hosting fungi and insects. Living plants, on the other hand, provide shade, humidity, and carbon, exudates that dead mulch simply cannot. Ground covers, understory plants, and, volunteer species together form a living blanket that adjusts to weather and disturbance. When drought hits, growth slows. But when rain returns, coverage thickens. Static mulch, it just can't do this. Ancient agricultural systems rather cleverly copied this trick on purpose. Traditional polycultures were designed to keep roots in the soil all year round. Grains undersown with legumes, orchards with grazing animals, and gardens with overlapping crop cycles. All of these maintained continuous biological activity. Medieval open-field systems, left stubble standing. Indigenous food forests, on the other hand, layered crops vertically. Nothing was fully cleared unless it was absolutely necessary. These systems actually reduced labour precisely because the soil protected itself. Now, let's talk about how modern gardening practices, break the ecosystem mulch cycle. Frequent tilling severs roots and destroys fungal networks. Clearing beds removes both surface residue and underground carbon. Imported mulch might replace what was removed, but it does not, you see, reconnect the biological system. The result, quite simply, is dependency. Soil requires constant inputs because its internal cycling has been interrupted. Nature does not work this way, and honestly, it never has. Now, let's talk about how to actually use the ecosystem mulch trick in your own garden. The very first step, really, is to stop removing roots unnecessarily. When it's time to harvest, simply cut your plants right at soil level and leave those roots where they are. Honestly, just doing this one thing can change your soil structure within a single season. The second step, and it's quite important, is to keep something growing whenever the conditions allow. That could be cover crops, volunteer greens, or even some low weeds. Each of these serves a purpose. They help shade the soil and feed the microbes until you're ready to plant your next desired crop. And finally, the third step is to let plant residue fall exactly where it grows. Think chop and drop rather than clear and carry. This approach, you see, really mirrors how natural ecosystems distribute mulch, nice and evenly, and, very efficiently. So, here's how this works in vegetable gardens, not just in wild spaces. In a vegetable bed, quick crops like lettuce can be followed immediately by beans or squash, which are planted right through the residue. The roots from that first crop, they decay as the next one gets established. Now, in perennial beds, understory plants act as a sort of living mulch. Herbs, clover, or native ground covers will suppress weeds while also feeding the soil. No imported mulch is needed once the system stabilizes. Why does this approach matter for resilience and survival? Well, you see, systems that mulch themselves actually recover faster from stress. Drought, heavy rain, and even periods of neglect affect them less simply because the soil structure remains intact. This is exactly why abandoned fields often regenerate fertility faster than those that are, intensively managed. Historically, this kind of resilience really determined whether communities survived disruption. Fields that depended on constant inputs failed whenever supply chains broke down. But fields that mimicked ecosystems, they endured. So, what should you expect when transitioning away from conventional mulching? The transition phase, honestly, can look a bit disorderly. You'll notice more plant residue remaining, and growth patterns might appear uneven for a while. But this is only temporary. As soil biology stabilizes, weeds decline, and crops become more, consistent. The payoff, really, is cumulative. Each season builds on the last, instead of just resetting. If you value land knowledge proven by ecosystems rather than, fleeting trends, do subscribe to Husbandry and share this guide with anyone exhausted by endless mulching. Nature already solved the problem. All that's left is to stop ignoring the solution